So we're back again, working on the 400, but we're just giving you a quick shot of a bike we did a few years ago for my son. It's a 100 Kawasaki. We bought it as a pretty, let's call it a project bike. Went through it, now we have a reliable little bike, and that's what's inspired me to finally get off my butt. That and the doctor saying no throwing big engines around yet, to dig out and get back to work on the 400 TMTS. So tonight what we're going to be doing, I'm going to grab a handful of tools. We're going to be pulling the spark plug and putting a bunch of penetrating fluid into the cylinder, then pulling the side covers and seeing what we find under there, and kicking it through a few times, then dealing with some of the parts from the gas tank, pulling the carburetor and seeing how big that mess is going to be, and then plug away from there. So we're just going to grab a handful of tools and be back in a minute. Okay, our first step tonight, we're going to pop the spark plug out and throw some lubricant into the cylinder. Now, when we pulled this out, the first thing I did was kick it over to make sure it wasn't seized, and it wasn't. If it had been seized, that would have been a whole other ball of wax and a much bigger project, and I don't know if it would have been worth it. So we're going to start by popping the plug and putting a little bit of lubricant into it. Now, when something's been sitting this long, you can get into a lot of trouble if you don't get some penetrant into it and start to get it to loosen up. Even though it's kicking over, the rings could be seized, there could be all kinds of other problems. So we're going to blow it full of penetrant, push it through a couple times, then top it off and leave it sit for a day so we can see how it looks. And the spark plug itself looks not too bad, old, but that's to be expected. Now everybody has their own favorite when it comes to penetrant. There's WD-40, there's this, that, and 12 other things. I'm currently using an off-brand one because I wanted to try it out. So we're going to squirt a whole bunch of this stuff in there. Give her a couple of kicks. Sounds good. Top it up. And now we'll give it a day or two to work its way through the system, loosen things up before we try and start it. So I'll just spin the plug back in. I'll just spin the plug back in and we'll move on to the next part, which is going to be tearing off the side panels and the other bits so we can see what's going on in there and get deeper down so we can get the carburetor off and get it apart. There we go. Now, let's start working on those side panels. There's all kinds of goodies tucked behind here. Time to get a look at them. Now this is an old bike. It's a 1976, and I'll be honest, I wasn't very kind to it over the years. She's been in the odd river, hit a bear, a couple of grouse. Been dropped more times than I can count, but she's always been a real good, reliable bike. So I think, if at all possible, she's worth saving. And while we have the side panels off, once we have it running anyway, we're going to give them a new coat of paint and touch up the frame and some other stuff as we go along. But the first thing is to see if we can get it running. And in behind here we have a teeny tiny battery. So we're going to get it disconnected. Oh, she doesn't want to come apart. Tall here. There we go. Wow, couldn't make that one much smaller. Everything else seems to be intact. The old toolkit was in here. Everything's intact there. So we're just going to slide it back on. Give everything a good look while you're in here. There we go. See what's going with what. Everything's hooked up. No vast amounts of corrosion. That's all looking good. Still finding lots of dirt. We'll get another blowout here shortly. We'll move to the other side. And all we really have on this side, we'll give you a look. Is the oil tank, as you can see right in there. And everything else looks pretty good there. So now we're going to break out the tools and pop off the carburetor. Once we've got it off, we'll be back and take a look at what it looks like. Okay, after a little hard work, we're back and let's look what we've done. When we took the side panel off, we got the battery out. On the other side, we checked through things. On this side, we had to undo and get out the air filter assembly, which got us to the carburetor. We had to undo the clamp in here on the rubber mounting that the carburetor goes into. Pull it out, but the cable for the throttle remained attached when you do that, so you have to go back and undo this top, work the cable loose, take the cable out, and then remove the carburetor. And that was a bit of a challenge because the piston inside had seized down, so we had to soak it down, let it work a little bit, and then pop it out. Now here in a minute we're going to dump it into the solvent and start taking a look at where we're at. And that should be entertaining. So the bits and pieces are all coming apart as they should. As we look around, the overall condition isn't bad. It's all going to come down to if we can get it to run or not. Oh, there's that pesky throttle cable we had to get detached. And we'll take it from there here fairly shortly. All the bits and pieces are coming together. So next step will be onto the workbench, and we're going to take a look at the carburetor, the pieces off the gas tank, and trying to figure out what the next step is with the gas tank. Okay, we're at the workbench, and let's take a look at what we're doing tonight. So what we're getting into is taking apart the carburetor. Now on this side, remember I said we had already taken the fuel tank off. We have the bolts here that hold the fuel selector or fuel feed from the tank on. We also have the cap with its rod and other pieces. These are all off the fuel tank. Our carburetor's right here, and we're going to start by attempting to get off the old fuel line, which looks like it's going to be a bit of a challenge. There we go. Fuel line. Now notice how I'm laying everything out as I go. Next piece, top of the carburetor. Now you'll have already had this off if you were following the directions in the manual for the bike. There we go, made a break for freedom. So we'll set the cap, the gasket, and the spring right here. Next we're going to want to try and get this out. And that is our piston. And it's in there pretty good from old age and sitting. Might have to go grab a couple more tools. Okay, that's normally how I do it. Tonight we'll take off the float bowl. See what kind of mess we have in here. And again, I'm laying out all the parts as we go. That way when it comes time to put it back together, I know where everything is. And hopefully the gaskets will stay intact and save us the expense of having to buy a gasket kit before we know if it runs. Go! Ah, you little monster. And last one on this. Now we can see what kind of mess we got in here. There we go. And we have a bit of a mess. This is our float bowl. Now you can see where all the old fuel dried out, all that dust and residue and garbage. This has all got to be cleaned out. Here we have the float and the pin that holds the float in, which we're going to take out. One moment. Here, I need to... Okay, this is the pivot. Pop it up. So, again, laying all the parts out so we can find them again. Float bowl. Uh-oh. You don't want to come out, little bugger. Okay. Now, there's a clip around this one, so we're just going to have to worry that clip off. Like so. And that'll get us to the needle and seat. Yeah, the eyes ain't what they used to be. There we go. There we go. And again, laying our parts out carefully so we can find everything. And that would be the needle. This component right here is what's called the seat. And we're going to leave it all together for the moment. This is your idle adjustment screw. This, of course, is your primer. But we still have this problem of getting the piston to come the rest of the way out. So, let's take out the jet. This is your main jet. And these old bike carbs are pretty simple. They're a great place to start if you've never done a carburetor before. So, and all of these components are going to have to be cleaned to death. And if you look really close in there, you can see the smudge and the buildup and the garbage from all those years of sitting doing nothing. Now, let's get back to this. Come on, girl. A little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, we're just going to go give it a squirt of some carb cleaner. Now keep your head away from this stuff when you're squirting it. It's not the happiest stuff on the face of the planet. It ain't good for you to breathe. I should have put a mask on. Didn't. Drive it back in. Go. Starting to move. See, this is what comes from sitting. There's nothing worse for the internal combustion engine than to sit. And I wasn't a good boy letting this one sit as long as I did, and it's created some messes. But that's the hazards of family life. There we go. Now, this is the carburetor needle jet, which goes into the main jet, and how far it moves in and out is what determines how much fuel is going in. So when you rack on the throttle, it moves back, more fuel comes in. When you let off, the needle, which is tapered, goes down and gives you less fuel. Now there's no damage on this, fortunately, so we should be in pretty good shape. And again, keeping all our parts in a nice logical order so we can find them all again when it comes time to reassemble. So we're in pretty good shape. As you can see, there's the gunk in there is unbelievable. So we're going to have to take out this one. Now what I do on these is mark where we're at as we count it back and then write it down. So 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns, 7 turns, 8 turns, 9 turns, 10 turns, 11, 12, and it's out. So I'm going to mark that down just beside my toolkit as 12 turns. So after everything is cleaned up, we'll put it back in. And this is your mixture adjustment for idle, and it feeds the amount of air that goes in. So at this point, we've got her all broken down, and what we're going to do is everything's going to go into this bucket of Varsol. Now I recycle my Varsol, so if it's a little dark, don't freak out. It's been through a filter, it's just discolored. And at this point, I'm not worried about clean Varsol, I'm just worried about getting stuff clean. So pretty much everything's going in there. The smaller pieces like these, we're going to be putting into a different jar that has a bunch of penetrating oil into it. And then they'll go through the next round of the solvent bath. And then we'll lay the parts back out. Beautiful part of this video is I have it on record already. So we'll be able to know where everything goes when I lay it back out. The big deal anytime you're dealing with a carburetor is follow the manual. Be very careful, lay things out. Make sure you know where everything's going, how it's laid out. Take a picture, in this case I've got the video, and then when it comes time to go back together, it's not a big deal. Now it's going to take a day or two for this stuff to sit. In the meantime, we're going to move on and see what we can figure out what to do with the gas tank, because it's become a problem. In the area I live in, nobody has a hot tank or a caustic soda tank to clean the rust out of it. So we've got to look at some other options and try some different things to get the rust out of the tank so that we can give some fresh fuel to this thing. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Now a real quick note as follow-up. You notice the big rag? That's covering our solvent bucket and our penetrating oil bucket. Both have tight lids on them. Both are then covered and set in a place that's safe. You don't want it near any kind of extreme heat or fire or anything like that. We're just going to let them sit there for a couple of days now. Meantime, we'll finish getting ready to do the gas tank. So, we're back. Here's the gas tank. I'm not letting this thing in my shop. That 20-year-old fuel, the stink was so bad it's frightening. This thing still has to air out and it's got to be cleaned. And that's the big problem right now. It overwhelmingly, the single biggest problem child we're running into is rust in the tank. And as you can see way down in there, that should be shiny, and it's not. It's rusted from moisture getting into the fuel and from it setting. I know better, but life gets in the way. So we can't get a hot tank locally, and before I drive an hour and change to take it to the city to have it done there, we're going to try a couple things. And the first one is we're going to use a mag wheel cleaner. Now the reason we're going to use a mag wheel cleaner is it contains muriatic acid. Now I don't recommend going out and buying a gallon of muriatic acid unless you know what you're doing. It's really nasty stuff, and I mean really nasty. It can do damage, it's got health issues. If you're familiar with it, great. If you're not, I don't recommend it. But in its diluted form in mag wheel cleaner, it's a lot safer. And I think it might give us a break. So let's give it a shot. We're going to take and make sure we get it all the way through the tank on both sides.
Told you I'd come out, I just forgot for about an hour and a half.
Okay. No problem, just my son arriving. Now, if this stuff works, it's going to help the cause. If not, we're going to probably have to look at some other options, which I'm going to be reading up on. In the meantime, that's pretty much it for tonight, and we're going to clean up our tools, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.
Did I seriously come in right?